there's a mentality that's been around for years and years, hundreds, thousands of years. It is how the natural world functions, actually. So there's two ways of changing something. You can do it systematically over time, and that takes a lot of time. Or you can have a disaster and start from scratch. So in the natural world, things would change over time gradually to become whatever it is from whatever it was. But as I say, that takes time. Sometimes short spaces of time, sometimes long. To make a really big impact and to start all over, you would have a natural disaster, so volcano, tsunami, hurricane, tornadoes, you know, all your usual stuff, ice age, fires, you know, usual stuff, right? So society likes to replicate that, which can have advantages and disadvantages. So if you have something that you don't like, you can systematically address that and change it over time. And some of these things can be done in a short space of time, and some of them might take a little bit longer, but it's doable, right? The downside, the disadvantage to that method, if there are lots of bad things all existing at once that all need changing and addressing and sorting and scrapping and rebuilding, you can't do all those things at once. It would take hundreds of years to try and change that. All of them, all those things at once. You can't tackle every single one at once as it exists. As it stands, it's I can liken it to renovating a house. You take on a house, and when you buy it and you get into it, you realise there's no hot water. The pipes are ruined, the boiler's ruined, the electrics are ruined, the plaster's ruined, the floors are ruined, the walls are ruined, the roof is ruined. Right? Now you imagine when you're addressing all that stuff and you come in and you go, oh shit, that's a lot of stuff that's bad and I need to sort that. You've got two options, and that is take the long, hard route, which is fix one thing at a time and spend a lot of money trying to fix this thing that exists already, right? Or you've got option number two, which is a reset, which is demolish the whole thing and start from scratch, because it would be cheaper to build something new than it would be to fix the thing that's old. And this is where I go into money, because society runs on money. We are not the natural world. Though the natural world would use the equivalents in the equivalents of money would be resources. We've substituted resources for fictitious role-playing fantasy game where we use something called money, right, as a leverage rather than resources. It's the same thing. So anytime the world gets very bad, it used to happen on a smaller scale. It used to happen on the scale of a village or a town, or even just a country. It very rarely got big, you know. Like, we haven't had a full world catastrophe for a very, very long time. So we've seen these mini resets throughout history for a bit. And what the people in charge like to do is it is much harder to take existing people, existing beliefs, existing ideas, and try and reform them into something new, with new ideals, new beliefs, new outlooks, new everything. Okay. You can't do that in a short space of time and guarantee it to work. It would cost a lot of money, and there would be an uproar, because, you know, people have rights and they still have to abide by rights to an extent. And I say to an extent because rights are only good if you know what your rights are and if they're being undermined. Our rights were undermined in the 1800s to begin with, and we are still in that. So we don't actually know our rights. We know fake rights, but we don't know our actual rights. Anyway, I've gone off sidetrack. What I'm trying to get at is, for rich people, so the rich minority at the top, it is much more beneficial for them. And you see it with properties. They don't restore properties or redevelop properties. They will demolish the whole lot and start from scratch. Okay. Because it's easier and cheaper. And you will see that they don't take existing staff. This is more so in government position jobs. They don't often appreciate having to take existing staff and wasting money and on resources and training to get them to reform. So what they do is they like to have a clear out and get brand new staff. Another way to look at this is pop idols, musicians, famous singers that are popular. What they do is they don't get somebody who is already a brand. They don't get somebody who's already branded and make them famous. What they do is, this goes for models, this goes for actors, or all of these people. They go for young, fresh, moldable. Even business, any business would prefer and look for young, moldable, compliant people that are yes men. So you have to say yes to everything, even if you don't realise the consequences of what you're saying yes to. That's what they prefer. They prefer you to just say yes, because it's opportunities, you know, and it's going to take you to all these places. So they want malleable. They want you to be a ball of dough that they can, you know, mold and shape you into whatever they want, whenever they want. If you have your own established identity, then you are not easy to manipulate. You are more on their level than they'd like, and you become opposition, basically. Every single interaction you have will operate in some form on that level of, is this person malleable? Will they do what I tell them to do? Or are they their own person? Are they, do they have agency over their own mind? And if so, are they on my side or are they my enemy? Okay. So why am I making this video? Because we are in a situation where there are lots of people with lots of opinions and lots of beliefs, and lots of them aren't malleable anymore. They were in the 1800s when there was no internet or media. But that's not how it is now. And everybody's fighting their own little corner, and that's lots of enemies, and lots of things are breaking, and lots of things aren't being maintained anymore. People are walking away and wanting to build their own new thing. So all these old things aren't being maintained. And it would take a long time to systematically change all this stuff, and it cost a lot of money in general for manpower and resources and training and, you know, materials and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of false promises at the moment of, we'll be able to do this in this time frame, we'll be able to do this, we'll be able to do this. Okay. Words are good for what they're worth, and they're not worth much. Words aren't worth much. The action is. And you won't see systematic changes over time, because it would take too much money and take too much time, and far too many people are impatient, and there is no money and there is no time. Okay. All these things are piling up faster than they can be sorted. And so the rich minority at the top, their best solution every time, and you look back on history and they do it every time, is to do a reset. And nowadays they've got a bit more agency over how they do that. Whether you believe it or not, they do have the ability to control weather. They can blow all your electrics in one go with EVPs. We've got drones now. It's like playing a game. They don't even have to shoot you or hurt you personally. They can do it with a game controller and a drone, a little robot. They can do it with your vaccinations. They can give you bad food with a lovely, bright, fluorescent, fancy label on it, so that it appeals to you. Back in the day, when there was no regulation over food, they used to bulk out bread with sawdust and other things like that. So the very, very poor people would eat bread full of sawdust. That's not fake. That's true news. Nowadays, there's regulations, so they can't outright just pack it with sawdust, but they can pack it full of other things that don't initially hurt you, but can build up over time and hurt you over time. The process of even obtaining the flour and making it gluten free, for example, has that many processes in it that it actually totally ruins the flour, and there's no nutritional content, and that's why they have to keep adding in vitamins and all these other things into your bread, because it's the process is too destructive. So the cheap bread that you're buying in the nice little packet, it's just as good for you as a loaf of bread full of sawdust. So they can get you that way, and make it so that your body deteriorates over time. And they start you from a young age, so they start you as soon as you're born, really. And that's the food that's available, and that's what your families are buying. There's lots of ways of doing a reset over short term and long term. The quickest, short-term reset that doesn't cost much is Civil War. So what they can do is they can get lots of different groups all falling out with each other at once, and they don't have to do anything. They just throw the stone and then sit back and watch while everybody else destroys themselves and each other. That's the cheapest way. But if that doesn't work out, people are angry, but there is no civil war yet, then they will go towards war. It is much more expensive. However, when you compare systematically fixing things over time versus chucking some money at a quick war that lasts a short period of time, which it will nowadays because, well, we've got all sorts of, we've got crazy shit now. A war is much more cost effective. And that's all the rich minority are thinking about. The things you need to pay attention to. Assets. So assets are your leverage. You need to have assets. Okay. House prices go up. So what that means is if you've got a house now, it's going to be worth more down the line. But again, you need to live as well. That is your house, you know, so you need to have other assets besides your house. You can get a house if you've got a permanent job and you've been working it permanent for 3 months and you have a 5% deposit. That's all you need. And your credit score is good. There's your little tip of the day. You can get a mortgage with just 5% deposit. That's all you need. And then what you do is you pay it off as fast as you can, which means the payments will be high, but you will have it, rather than paying it off over 35 years, for example, at a low cost, you basically pay off more over 15 years or 10 years and get it all paid for very quickly with a high mortgage. And you can do it that way and make sure that that house is yours. Okay. But a house isn't the main thing, and neither is clothes or electrics. As I say, EVPs blow all your electrics in 1 second within 100-mile radius. So you need to have fuel, you need to have water, you need to have fertilizer, which is the same thing as saying you need to have fertile soil. Okay, you need to have nutrient-rich soil, or a lot of poop, which is technically kind of what soil is. It's full of it. It's just degraded matter, basically. Degraded organic matter. And you also need, what did I say? Fuel, fertilizer, water. You need water. And you will need a sustainable method of feeding yourself beyond stocking up cans and having a stash, because that's helpful and it's a good buffer, but it's not long term. And once a war is over, the war will be a short destructive time. Okay, it'll happen very short. It's like a landslide. It'll just come and hit everybody and then it's done. It's very quick to destroy something. To create something takes a longer time. So once something's destroyed, you need to make sure you've got your seeds. You need to make sure you've got your plants. So you've got your store for the short term, but what about the long term? Because you need to be able to feed yourself, because there is no pumps to pump the water, which means you're not going to have tap water anymore. There's no way of cleaning your sewage, so you won't be able to use your toilets. There's no way to, you know, get electricity. Gas will run out again. Who's pumping the gas and collecting the fuel? So you've got to think about that stuff, because the only way to survive a reset is to be prepared, and that means go back to the way that nature works. You watch squirrels, you watch mice, you watch all your nature, and they will stockpile for the worst time, basically, so that they're fine no matter what. They will figure it out, and they make sure that they've got more than enough when the time comes when it's going to get hard and there isn't any about. Famine is a way to get rid of people. There's a lot of people. You can't brainwash them all. During a war, you always get famine, and people pass away from disease because there's no hospitals or sterile equipment, or, you know, all of those things. So you've got famine, pestilence, all of these things, fighting, lots of ways. What's that song? Dumb ways to die. It's true. So many dumb ways to die. Anyway, sidetracking. All of those are very effective means, and have always been that way, to reduce the population. And when they want to reset and they just think, I'm not playing this game anymore, I don't want to deal with these people, I don't want to fix this, I don't want to pay into this, I don't want to sort it, I don't want to deal with it, the Great Reset comes along, and they will instigate all of these things at once, so that they can basically clear out lots of the players in the game of society and start afresh. And they are looking for the fittest and strongest to survive, and the cleverest. And for those ones to reproduce and become the new, you know, the new players in the game, the new society. This is a regular thing. This isn't anything new. You can go back and look in history at every single war, every single drought, every single cold patch. You know, you will plague. That's what happens. That's what happens. They prefer, even revolution, they prefer new players sometimes. A reduced number of new players, because it's easier to start fresh. And it's still expensive, but it costs less than if they were to do it over time systematically. So that's the truth of the matter. My advice: think about your worst possible day and how you would deal with that. Your ankles are snapped. You're in the middle of nowhere. You've not got your supplies. You're not at home with your supplies. You're on your own. You've got no light, no warmth. How are you going to deal with all that? Because that question there is the start of how you build up your stocks and build your plan to survive, and survive well. The other part of this, someone's bound to notice that you are resource rich. You are living in society as it stands now. You look at the rich people who have everything. You, the poor person, have nothing. You are very fucking angry and resentful and pissed off at those people over there, those rich people, abundant in resources. That's how it goes. Yeah, we get very hostile towards those who are hogging resources, right? Even if it's not hogging some people up, you need at least a year's worth of supplies to survive, right? That's just a genuine fact. Okay. Someone could look at that and go, they're hogging all the resources, they don't need all that much. In actual fact, they do. But from somebody else's point of view who's got nothing, it looks like that person over there's got everything. And you now need to prepare for people who are going to pillage and plunder. Basically, if you have resources, you are now the equivalents of the rich people, and people will come to try and find you and attack you and take your stuff. That's how it goes. When people start pirating resources, we've regressed to what, 1700s, 1500s. We've gone all the way back to caveman times. That's the way it is. Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. Nothing's changed. Last little tip. Yes, everything is going cashless. I suggest you make sure you've got at least £1,000 or two at home in cash, in small notes. Ways to clean your water, ways to get rid of your sewage, ways to get food, ways to keep warm, and shelter. They're your main things. Travel, we've got legs. If you haven't got legs, then you need a skateboard and you need to be pushing with your arms. And if you ain't got no arms or legs, well, you need to be finding somebody who has and get them to give you a piggyback. Right? Back in the day, people who were disabled used to team up. So you would have a blind man who's got arms and legs and can get about, but he can't see. And then you would have someone who's got no arms and legs, but they have got eyes, and they would team up. And they would, the blind man would carry the disabled man around with no arms and legs, and he would do the directions. When I worked in warehouse, my friend had glaucoma, and his vision was so bad, and he's going to end up blind in the next couple of years, and he's a year or two older than me. He was a very strong, tall lad, and I am this small woman whose body keeps failing all the time, and I can't do the things I'm meant to be doing and move things the way I should. And so we teamed up together, and I would be his eyes and he would be the strength, basically. And that's the way you have to build your community. You have to look at each other's deficiencies as well as proficiencies and try and match up as best you can to cover all areas, to make sure that all of your vulnerable areas are covered. Okay? That's just the way it is. You've got to make sure that, all your vulnerabilities are covered. Make sure you've got vitamins. Make sure you've got protein powder. Make sure you've got pain relief, contraceptives, sterile medical equipment. And no, I'm not joking about any of this. Contraceptives is the main one. And I'm just going to talk about this one quick because I don't want to go into this because this absolutely petrifies me. During wars, women are liable to be assaulted. And first things first, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Matter of fact, they are the stronger out of us all. Men are stronger. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Obviously, I don't want that to happen to anybody. I didn't want it to happen to me before, but it did. So what I'm going to tell you is contraception is really important because you can't be used as a farm animal, and you can't be left in those circumstances in a war-torn country with very little resources, now with a child that you need to bring up and look after. that is one of the worst scenarios you could be left in. And this is why in the Victorian times there used to be, in fact, all the way throughout history up until just after 1950s, women would be caught in circumstances, end up with children, and what they would do is they would sell their babies or give them away or leave them to perish, or they'd just get rid of it. They'd find a way to get rid of them. They would keep having them if they didn't pass away during pregnancy, but they would keep having them, basically. You don't want to be used as a farming animal and made to reproduce, and you do not want to be kept in a situation where you are now responsible for another life on top of your own in such a piss poor circumstance. It's bad enough that you are in that circumstance. So yeah, contraceptives, you get them free from your doctors, but you can actually buy them. Your doctor gives you your prescription for free here with the NHS, because you pay your tax and national insurance, and they don't tend to give you more than your allowance every single time, because they don't want to run out of stock. Everything can be bought with money. That's the way the world works. So if you've got the money, you can buy extra contraception. It's the way the world works. Same with medical stuff. At one point, a lot of medical equipment started running dry, and it's because lots of private people were buying it all. And it wasn't even for medical reasons. They were using it for props and all sorts, for films and TikToks and videos, all sorts of crap. The fact of the matter is the world revolves around money, and money is the equivalence of resources. So you need to care about money, and you need to care about resources. Growing up, I only ever cared about resources, because that's the real thing to me. I didn't give a fuck about money. I didn't give a fuck. I'd give it away. I'd piss it up the wall. I didn't give a fuck. I didn't care about what happened with my money. In the past 10 years, I have learnt that it is society's equivalence of a resource. And so I have to take it seriously in the capacity of the game of society. Because in the game of society, it's very real. Do you know what I mean? Just to understand what I mean by that, if a person who has schizophrenia says that they can see things and these things are happening to them, yeah, they genuinely believe that these things are real, okay? It's not to me, but to them it is. And so I need to take that seriously. I need to take that very seriously, because it's very real to them, and it's making them have responses and reactions to it, yeah? And I need to, that they're acting on that. They believe it into existence, yeah? And that's why you need to take it serious. So there's my parallel on why you should take money serious. Look after yourself. We are going towards a reset. And I don't, and people aren't going to survive. People will perish. And it reminds me of Stephen King's film, but Stephen King's book. It's just been made into a film, The Long Walk. Nobody realises what they're signing up to till they're already in it. You know, you don't realise when you're being born that you're going to be born into this. This is life, you know. And you can't take everybody with you. People drop off all the time. You have to... I've learned, again, in the past 12 years, I've learned that people drop off very quick. And also, I need to leave people behind. That's the other one that you need to learn. You have to know when to move on and not dwell on the grief that comes with that, because you can't survive when you are sitting in grief. And that's one of the worst realizations that I've ever had and that I've ever had to say. Life is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and you only get the full scope of how wonderful it is when you have the stark contrast of how fucking awful it is. And if you want to enjoy it and you want to continue living it, then you will find a way to strengthen your backbone very fast and become resilient and use your brain, your God-given brain, skills, talents, abilities, yeah? Don't care whether you've got 2 arms, 2 legs, no arms, no legs. You'll figure it. Some people won't. And that's sad to think about, you know? But again, that's the way the world works, you know? Some tree saplings survive and some don't. Some flower seedlings survive and some don't. Just look after yourself. And I mean that. I hope more people come out alive than not. And I hope everyone figures out how to get together and start working together properly to overcome the rich minority that are ruining everything. Can't just blame rich minority. We've also got some absolutely insane cultists. And it is a cult. It's not a religion, it's a cult. Best start watching your apocalypse films, totalitarian films. Get some tips. Horror films, survival films, Equilibrium. Bro, that inspired me so much. It did. It did. It actually did. I love that film. I don't know how to end this video. Stay safe. Look after yourself.